With Helldivers 2 picking up the pieces after a bad deal with Sony, and Valve still not able to count to 3, the horde shooter genre has been quite barren. Don't even get me started on Darktide, which still has mixed reviews on Steam, and Back 4 Blood kicking the dirt after Crobecat, I don't know, whatever, literally made 7.9 million people realize that they'd rather play a game from 15 years ago than play Back 4 Blood itself. Thankfully, Deep Rock Galactic has been keeping the genre alive for quite a substantial time now, though this isn't to say that all other games haven't done anything for the genre's lifespan. Luckily, Space Marine 2 came out to critical acclaim, so we can finally forget what a mess Darktide did years ago for the 40k horde shooter franchise. It was so critically acclaimed in fact that during its release, I was like, "Let's fucking go." And my friends were like, even my sister, who didn't know anything about Warhammer 40k, was like,
"Oh my god! Okay, it's happening! Everybody stay calm!
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?"
Stay calm!
This video was made with the support of my patrons and subscribers. Consider giving this video a like and subscribe to my channel. More info in the description and comments below. On September 6, 2011, THQ Nordic released Warhammer 40k Space Marine, which was developed by Relic Entertainment. And during this time, my 14-year-old ass has yet to be introduced to the 40k universe. And luckily, my brother has a pirated copy of Space Marine 1 installed on the communal gaming PC. By the way, there were 3 of us vying for game time on that machine, and that's how it became communal. I played it and immediately fell in love with the piss-colored aesthetic of the early 2010s mixed with the grit, gore, explosions, and stray bullets flying all over the place. After finishing the game in one sitting, and before you guys judge me for finishing a game in one sitting, during this time I literally never go out of my house, nor did I have friends to do stuff with. I promptly forgot about the 40k franchise and the adventures of Titus. Fast forward 10 years, and to the surprise of many, including myself, they've announced Space Marine 2 during the 2021 Game Awards seemingly out of nowhere. SM2 is one of the many, and I mean many, games that fall under the vast 40k universe, and before you start asking what the hell is Warhammer 40k, we could talk about it, but before we could even finish the intro to the overarching plot, we'd be dying of old age. So for the purposes of making this video's runtime watchable within a human's lifespan, we'll just focus on the game itself. The game is a third-person horde shooter that features an optional 3-player co-op campaign, also featuring 3-player co-op PvE side missions that run parallel alongside the campaign. It also features a 6v6 PvP mode that has 3 game modes to choose from. But before we could even understand a sliver of the 40k universe, we need to know what the hell is Space Marine 2. The story continues 2 centuries after the end of Space Marine 1, and if that boggles your mind, remember that time is kind of a forgettable concept for Space Marines, since they can live up to a millennium. That is assuming if they don't die in combat. We'll be playing as Lieutenant Demetrian Titus, or Big T for short, who's serving in the Death Watch after he exiled himself from the Ultramarines due to him thinking that he isn't worthy of representing his chapter because of allegations of heresy. Which is bullshit, by the way. My man Big T just needs to get a better lawyer. Hashtag Big T did nothing wrong. After a fatal stabbing incident involving an alien the size of a 1-bedroom apartment, Big T is reborn as a better, faster, and stronger Space Marine, which apparently is called a Primaris. And after waking up, Skeletor breaks the news that Big T is now once again an Ultramarine. You'll be ripping and tearing aliens of different kinds a new one in this short but sweet 6 to 10 hour campaign filled with action and badassery, the likes of which you can only find in a setting like this. And during this action-packed journey that makes the Geneva Convention look like a checklist, you'll be encountering Xenomorphs on steroids, History Channel up 3 AM, Skeletor from HR, Dwight Schrute from The Office, an old space book that every Ultramarine follows, Black Friday sales, Titus being done with his coworkers, a regular day at Waffle House, 40k lingo, being part of a cult, everyone yelling "brother," floating skulls and actual cherubs, an unnecessary amount of monitors, the most unaerodynamic aircraft I have ever seen, office politics, spending time painting your digital soldiers instead of painting your actual soldiers, always running out of ammo, getting stun-locked to death, these annoying fucks, a fully evolved tapeworm, the mission everyone's going to talk about after finishing the game, magical dreadnoughts, actual dreadnoughts, looking for the stupid gene seed, praying to RNGesus that you'll get armory data, players abusing the Meltagun, the Crayon Legion, and the harrowing thought that this is the possible future if we don't achieve world peace. Space Marine 2's combat didn't stray a lot from its predecessor, heavily mixing melee and shooting quite smoothly, and to be honest, I'm kind of surprised not a whole lot of third-person shooters do this style of combat. If you've played Gears of War and Batman Arkham Asylum, this game would be right up your alley. Being able to drop a couple of Xeno scum from downrange, and when you eventually get swarmed, you swap to close quarters combat at a drop of a hat, and recreating scenes from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a fucking awesome feeling that by the end of your first encounter, you've grown a full beard. Not to mention, you still got a gun in your other hand, so you can still shoot far off targets while you're in the middle of murdering a whole family's worth of Xenos, and while you're at it, executions are a regular occurrence in this game. Bring your enemy's health down low enough, and you'll be able to execute them on the spot, be it at range or in close quarters. And if that already sounds like a lot, you'll have to contend with special enemies that you'll either have to dodge or parry in order to keep yourself alive. And did I mention that you'll regain armor and HP if you play aggressively? SM2 doesn't give you automatic HP regeneration, so the combat design really pushes you to play it smart and aggressively, especially on higher difficulties. The game manages to balance and mix anyone who wants to play at range or a player who wants to get their hands dirty and fight up close. Personally, I like shooting more than being in a melee-centric fight, but going all John Wick up close with my enemies and slicing a 10-foot tall Tyranid with a chainsword is a feeling that I've never felt in any other game, with the possible exception of Doom. The campaign lends itself to a lot of moments which shines a light on the best aspects of the game, boldly showing the swarm engine and making you fight a whole slew of enemies, further highlighting the best parts of the combat while seamlessly telling its story. While playing the campaign, there are certain parts where another squad of Ultramarines support Titus. The operations mode covers those sections of the story. You'll be playing the missions either by yourself or with 2 other people. You can also pick whichever of the 6 classes you want to play. Unfortunately, this mode does not allow for multiples of the same classes to be picked, so you'll have to adjust if you get matched with someone who picked the same class as you. Or much worse, you get matched with someone who's already in a mission with the same class as you. Sadly, this hasn't been fixed in the current version of the game at the time of writing, so I highly advise picking at least 2 other classes you want to play, or better yet, play with 2 other people to avoid this bullshit. Eternal War is your bog standard PvP that harkens back to the old 360 and PS3 days of lobby type matchmaking, minus all the prepubescent swearing and the kids telling you they have relations with your mother. It's 6v6, and you can play either as the titular Space Marines or the group with the most creative name ever, the Chaos Space Marines. Eternal War mode features 3 game modes, which are Annihilation, Capture and Control, and Seize Ground. Annihilation works as your standard deathmatch, kill enemies to gain points, and first team to 50 points wins the match. Capture and Control is your King of the Hill style game mode, where you get 1 zone to capture and whoever captures it gains points. Lastly, Seize Ground, which is your domination type game mode, where you have 3 zones you need to capture and protect. Capturing said zones gives you points over time, and even though there's nothing to write home about here, the addition of a PvP mode with proper servers is always a plus in my book, considering the price point of the game. Although they could use more maps, since at the time of writing there's only 3 maps available, but I'll happily have these 3 maps than no PvP at all. In Operations mode, you'll be able to customize and spec all 6 available classes, to the point that I haven't realized I've spent the better part of the afternoon deciding whether to go Ultramarine Blue or Bloodraven Red, and end up going off the rails and customize my own Space Marine with total disregard to the lore. I also ended up grinding to get more color options, logos, and armor parts, so that I've started to question whether or not what I'm playing is the digital version of crack.
Tight, yeah!
Highly addicting substances aside, all 6 classes have their own unique armor customization options, but all heraldies, which are the paint jobs and logos you'll be able to unlock, are shared between all classes, as well as a few armor options that can be unlocked via heraldries. These can be unlocked through the use of collected requisitions gained from finishing operations mode missions or finishing trials. The weapons, on the other hand, are a different story. Some weapons are shared with other classes and some are not, with the exception of the bolt pistol, which is shared among all classes. All weapons in the game have their own perks and have their own customization options, which affect their stats. To unlock the customization options though, you're going to need armory data, and these are all found inside the operations mode missions. These things spawn at random, so you're at the mercy of RNGs on this one. The perks, on the other hand, require mastery of the weapon customization, though you could use what armory data you have to instantly master whichever weapon customization you choose. This in turn gives you mastery points to put on your weapon's perks. On the other hand, you'll also have an independent progression system in the Eternal War mode, where leveling up grants you access to other guns in your arsenal, although you can customize your Space Marine or Chaos Space Marine with the things you've unlocked while playing Operations mode. Aside from weapons and unlockable customization options, another large part of the overall progression in the game is your skill tree. Every class has an ability that you can tweak according to your preferences, classes, and the skill tree is divided into 4 parts, which is core, team, gear, and signature. Every single line in the skill tree lets you pick one skill. For core and gear, you have 3 options to choose from, and for signature and team, however, you can only choose one, though to unlock all of the skill tree options, you're gonna have to level up to 25. Hey everyone, if you've reached this part of the video and you've enjoyed it so far, feel free to like the video and subscribe to my channel. This helps me grow and figure out which of my content you guys enjoyed the most. Anyway, back to the video. Although the game is pretty straightforward, there might be a few things that you'll miss during your playthrough of the game, and with the help of the 13 R&D division, we've created a list of things that you should know before playing the game. You can call them ammo box or equipment box, but whatever you call these things, make sure to break them. They are all over the place during the campaign and operations mode, so keep an eye out and just dodge roll into it or melee these crates. They contain ammo, armor packs, and grenades. They're pretty easy to miss the first time, but when you see these things again, I'm fairly certain that you'll remember them. Grenades are lying all over the map in this game. Some players end up hoarding grenades that they end up not using it at the end of the mission for fear of not having grenades when it matters. Though when you replay the operations mode missions a few times, you'll eventually get a sense of where hordes will be and when's the best time to use your grenades. If you're low on requisition and green armory data, you can do the trials for every single class. It gives you a boatload of requisition and armory data, and at the same time this also acts as an introduction and tutorial for each class. Armory data and gene seeds can be found in every single operations mode. You'll use the armory data to upgrade your weapon, and the gene seed boosts the XP you'll gain at the end of your run. Unfortunately, like I said earlier, these things can spawn at random, though you can consistently find them at set places when they spawn. You can look up guides on where these things show up on certain missions and religiously check these places every time you run a mission. Additionally, you'll also find guardian relics during these missions, which gives you a free revive when you've been downed. So make sure to look far and wide for these things when in the field. If you're a melee-centric class and you can bridge the gap between you and your enemy quickly, you can ignore shooting them altogether and give them a good good whack, goddammit. Especially if they're low on health but have full armor, since melee damage goes through armor. When you encounter large hordes of Tyranids, you can easily remove the smaller enemies from the equation by killing the larger Tyranids. This severs their connection to the hive mind and instantly kills them Chitauri style like in the Avengers. You'd be surprised how much you can do with your secondaries in this game. And yes, your primary does more damage, but killing all enemies in sight with your primary ends with you having no ammo for the bigger fights and getting your ass beat 6 ways to Sunday for having no ammo. Conserving ammo is one of the big things you should be doing, especially on higher difficulties anyway, so it's best to practice it sooner rather than later. Otherwise, you'd be using a water gun against an enemy that looks like it ate 2 school buses with all the children inside. I read somewhere that this game existing in 2024 is a miracle, and in some ways it really is. The fact that you can buy this game at full price and have both PvP and PvE plus co-op with no microtransactions for premium in-game currency, not even a battle pass, is astounding. It really brings you back to the gaming scene of the early 2000s when you can easily pick a game up and give it up at any time with no fear of missing out. And with a content roadmap to look forward to, you can easily jump back into the action once again when they release new content. But it's not without its flaws, however. Despite the stellar gameplay provided by the game, the campaign can be considered quite short by some. Personally, I don't have an issue with that. I'd rather have a campaign be short and sweet rather than overstay its welcome. Sadly, it also doesn't answer some of the questions presented during the events of Space Marine 1. The PvE is fun and engaging, but with only 6 missions available, it can get old sometimes, especially when you've been running the same missions to grind all the unlockables for all the classes. Fortunately, the developers themselves said that they'd be adding more missions in the future. And lastly, PvP to some people can feel half-baked. While I do feel the same to a certain degree with this sentiment, I personally think that I'd rather have a simple and non-complicated PvP game mode where I won't have to worry about what's the most broken strats or what's the most efficient way to win. God knows we have a lot of those already. Space Marine 2 is unapologetic with its representation of the 40k universe. If you're not that deep into the lore, half of what they're saying would sound alien to you. But thankfully, the world and the language can be easily understood through context clues. But if you still feel like diving into the world of 40k is daunting, I myself am a casual fan, but I was able to find the fun in the game and connect with the community as well. Ultimately, even with all these flaws I've mentioned, it's one of those games that are worth your time and is genuinely fun to play, either alone or with other people. With a lot of games nowadays either becoming a money-grubbing scheme disguised as a game, or a game that pushes a political agenda rather than being a video game first, or worse, it's a bad amalgamation of both, this game and its successes should serve as a stark reminder to publishers and developers that people still want games to be games rather than a platform for their own greed or agenda. So yeah, I can definitely look past the minor flaws this game has if it means that games like this would be an example for other developers to follow. So, grab your bolter and chainsword, don your armor, and fight for the Imperium. Become humanity's bringer of justice and exercise your craft of death. Here in Space Marine 2. Thank you very much for watching. Join my Patreon for more behind the scenes content. Until next time.